In this video, I'm going to cover the customizable NPC along with the templates. The first thing I wanted to go over is an apology because in the release version that I did, I removed a piece of code when trying to debug crashes in the system from the 4.21 update, and I never reconnected this back. One thing that is needed for the NPCs to actually generate is these two function calls that should be in the construction script of the NPC character. And what it actually handles is the generation of the actual customized data. So like in your version of the demo, you would see all of these in their default state, which should look something like this. If it resets, it may not reset because it's already set. Yeah, there we go. So everything would look like this on yours. This would be gray. These would be, all these other NPCs would be at their default color. No customizations applied. To be able to apply that back for your modular component, if you drag that out and then call the setup modular data ref and the build modular character, it will actually generate the actual customized character data. Now, with that being said, let's go over the actual modular system. Let's see. So, if I go and find the NPC folder, which should be inside of the RPGEngineToolKit folder. If we look at our gen base, this is again where we have it to where we can specify what templates we want. The templates in general, when I thought of this, is to have a generation system for NPC types. So you could have male and female children, toddlers, teens, adults, and elderly inside of templates that could randomize clothing, randomize hair types, and also randomize morph data. I'm not going to go over the morph data because when I originally created, I made a pretty lengthy video going over the new settings for the customization and how it works. I also had a more in-depth example to show with that back then, which I used the DAS characters for an example of how to set up those morph targets and set up just a general NPC randomization with clothing and different morph types. And I'm going to include that in the playlist right after this. But this is the general area where you want to define a single template type for a character. And it will go through and randomly pick one of the skeletal mesh and then an outfit. Mind you, full body outfits, so the full outfit will override the body and the legs of another outfit. So that way you can't have improper representation of the clothing for just general overlaps. So with this current setup, if we look inside the NPC object, the first thing we do is create color palettes. This is a color palette system that I put together mainly for the character customization. So all the little color grids and things like that that I have for selecting skin color, hair color, and things like that are using these same functions to generate a kind of color scales, color template system using curves. And you can create this however you want, or you can just manually set whatever color template you want to go into these arrays. and the system will just use what's ever available to generate, randomness for the character, for, all the color assets. So if we go over here to the actual NPC, this is where you can set all your generation templates. So if you have more in here, you can add that there. So once you have this here, you can check and uncheck which levels of actual generation you want to go through. You may not want to go through all of this to actually generate a character, but if you check it, your NPC will randomly get generated. The clothing color, accents, and things like that, eye color, and anything that you have in the system that could be generated will be generated through this offset in general. And once you have what you want, you can actually turn off the ability to generate the character, just in case you somehow come by and accidentally click this to regenerate your character. For things like main characters and things like that you may need for events and stuff like that, you can actually make a template system that has just the basic important NPCs in them, and then you can force the template index to be able to switch to that given NPC type. You can also spaced out trying to figure out what I was trying to say there. But in general, just the base operations of trying to get a modular character generated stems from this template information. However you set this up and however depths you want to make this system is up to you. You can make it just plainly simple to where it'll just randomly pick an actual base character, and then boom, that becomes your NPC character, however you want to set it up. Again, down here I have all the color templates. So here's all the skin templates from what was generated over here. So you have a few hundred skin types to go through based on, a scale. Main color palettes, you have these, a few hundred here. And again, all of this is just generated with curved splines to be able to generate, base color change and color palettes. You can force whatever mesh you want to use in an actor here if you want to. Mind you that if you regenerate this up here for character mesh selection, if you have that on, it's probably going to change your force number that you have here. So if you want to actually force a given mesh, if I put 0 here, and see it switched over to the other one versus 1, which is the other template type, you can do that there. Along with that, you have just many different types of channels you can turn off, whether or not you want to sync up the highlights of the hair, so that way you don't have faded tips for the hair strands. You can have just one solid color for the whole hair, and just many different parts that you can just come through and customize and set in general for generating a modular character. Past the base setup of an actual modular character, you will also have, actually let me just go over here to show off this. You will have options to be able to have your NPC move around the world. The options are pretty much a pathing system, which is set up here. All of these are set to wander in a given area, and I don't have an example of technically this is an example of bystanding, but they're not really doing any real world actions. They're just executing a random animation after ever so often. But if we look at this one in general, and we go down to its BP data, we have the move type set to stationary. These are for NPCs that do not move in your world. They are mainly set to be in a certain area, stay in that area, and execute like a given action. So if you have a bartender at a bar, or a person outside that's sweeping up leaves, and you may have like a repetitive looping animation that they play to be able to sweep up leaves, you can put that in here. When you set an actor to stationary, you have to come down there and give them an animation. And there's also a stationary wait period. So by default, there is a general class for an NPC, which is just basic movements. Since the NPCs don't do anything special in the world, they don't have any actual battle animations or anything like that. This is just a general setup of saying, hey, if this NPC is moving, this is how I want them to move. And especially with the idle poses, that may be something that you want to specifically have for a given NPC type, depending on, how they're set up in the world. Like the bartender may have an idle of, leaning on the counter or things like that they switch to after they've done their stationary animation. So once they're done with this montage, they will go back into an idle state, which will be, leaning on the counter or what have you. So that is just one breakdown of one of the settings. If we go over here to pathing, we can specify a path. So this one is set to follow path. And when we come down here to the path information, you can tell the NPC whether we wanted to, take these points and move forward in the order that they appear in the list and backwards. So it's kind of like a patrol unit. It's going from one point of the hallway to another point of the hallway and then back to its original point. Looping would be if you have an NPC that just goes around in a circle. And then random would be, hey, randomly go to a different target in this list. That way it may make the NPC look a little bit more non-mechanical in general. And again, you have a wait time in between those different points. If you set it to 0, then as soon as it gets to a finished point, it's going to instantly go to the next one in the list. To be able to set these up, you can just pretty much drop down a standard waypoint with the name. You probably want to also include the name inside the level so you know what they are. Since this is so small, I didn't give them an actual name here. I just gave them a name. Well, actually, I didn't even give them a name here either. But you can also give their waypoints names if you need to be able to help keep track of them. But all you really need to do is come down here. You can, as you see, the actor picker, and just drop, what is it called, an eye drop. You can just select and pick the actor that you want to be as part of this pathing system that the NPC will follow. And then the last type is a wandering NPC. Right now, these are all manually dropped in NPCs set to wander. But if you use the crowd spawner, which is still in its experimental phase, any NPC that comes out of that will be automatically set to wander mode, and will try to operate in wander mode. Speaking of which, if we go down here, see it's set to wander. If we go down here, we can specify, there we go, their walk speed, which I'm not sure if it uses this anymore because we have the NPC class. But you can set the walk speed, the wander radius, and then how long they will wait before they wander to another spot in the area. This is a very low area because I didn't want the NPCs walking out the room or walking all the way over here in general for this demo area, so I just kept it down to a 700 area. And NPCs in wander mode will try to just generally walk around the area, but they'll also try to see if they can find point of interest objects. I'll probably talk about this in a second. Let me make sure I covered everything for the NPC. We got the wandering. The last part about the NPCs, which I mean technically is covered over here, but I can just generally talk about this, is the event setups. Like none of these NPCs are set up for events, but if I go in here, all these are a definition or defined characters, NPCs with actual events attached to them. So for instance, play movie NPC. Normally you wouldn't have a general event like this attached to an NPC, but this is just a general breakdown of a single event. These can be chained together, which I'll cover in a few minutes, but for right now, we're just going to look at a single instance. So when we have an event, we can come in here, load up a event structure, and what this will do is this object will go to the database. It will load up all the events that it has available in the database, and it will give them to you to be able to view here. Mind you, this could be a lot of events, which is why I have a filter system here to be able to filter, the databases that show up in this, the events that show up in this list. But in general, these are the event lists. These are the events that you have in your database. You can attach that to an NPC to be able to trigger a given event in your area. The majority of the time, the event that you would want to be able to trigger would probably storyline progression, which will probably be something more of, let's see, can I find it here? Probably this sequence right here, because when this sequence happens, it starts a cutscene, dialogue, and all that good stuff. But you could just have a general event storyline trigger that has just basic dialogue and things like that. It would not be allotted to a cutscene. With events on a NPC object, because this data object cannot exist inside of a package build, and you can't dynamically create this object in a package build, we have to bake events that we set to the bake list. And once you set whatever event that you want this NPC to have, you just click bake, and it goes into the bake list. This bake list correlates to an event that's been set up with the actual RPG database manager. I'll go over that when I go over events, but for right now, that's the basis of an NPC. You can generate a modular NPC. You can set it to activate certain event triggers if you want to. I still have it to where you can give an NPC a name. I don't think it's fully needed, but for right now, I just left it there until I may be able to find some reason to have the NPC names. Maybe if I want to, hover over them and see what their character name is for, the general area. But for right now, I just left it blank. The animation blueprint and all that is just dynamically loaded along with the skeletal mesh, like I showed you before. But in general, that should be it for the actual NPC definitions. It's mostly the modular system that would be helpful. You can attach events and stuff to them. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the point of interest objects. The point of interest object is something that any wandering NPC will try to find to be able to interact with the area. So with this sofa, an NPC will find this object. It's a general object. I tried to make it to where you can just adapt any blueprint to this as long as they have point of interest nodes attached to them. The NPC can go into the object, find out what it needs to do, and activate the specific information that node tells them to do. So for instance, this sofa has a point of interest, and I think it has about 3 points of interest, one for each cushion. Yes, it has one for each cushion for the point of interest. Sorry about that, my cat is trying to eat bags. So we have 3 point of interest objects that is in front of each cushion in this chair, well, in this sofa. The NPC will find this object, which is a base point of interest master. So it's a child of that class. And then what you can do is add these point of interest node components in here. And each of these nodes will say, hey, when you come to here, this is your mount animation. This is your unmount animation. So if it's a bar stool, you can say, hey, play this animation to get into the bar stool. Play this animation to get off the bar stool. And then you can also have usage animations, which is random. So if you want them to eat something at a bar, or laugh and giggle at somebody's joke for a while, and then after a extended amount of time, they get up and find some other point of interest. It's to hopefully help create non-stale environment, so that way you can have a little bit more intelligence to your AIs in your map without too much overhead in the system. But that's just something that can be played around with. I'm going to have fun trying to see what I can use that in. But for the NPCs in general, that is everything. Again, this is all the modular information for setting up an NPC, for how to set up your material parameters so that it can be controlled by the system. Hopefully that covers everything that anyone would need to know. Again, if there's anything that anyone's stuck on, anyone needs more information on, just send me an email, and I'll try to see if I can get that information via video. It seems to be the easiest way for people to consume data. So I'll try to see if I can put out as much of these as possible. There may be some repetition or redundancy in it, but sometimes that seems to help a lot of people with trying to learn the system, especially one as complicated as this one. Thank you.